Hey guys, Freddie Garcia with the Kane Luxury Team in beautiful Naples, Florida. And today we have Robert Curtis from Wintrust Mortgage.
Hey everyone, very happy to be here today. Thanks for the invite, Freddie.
So happy to have you.
Yeah, absolutely. So today we're going to be going over the 5 most important things as a first-time home buyer that you need to be watching out for in this marketplace.
Excellent. So let's get down to business.
Let's do it.
As a first-time home buyer, I got to say that most first-time home buyers are very nervous. They don't know where to start.
Sure.
And they don't. There's so many pitfalls. Sometimes they don't even want to get approved because they're afraid of what's going to come up.
Yeah. So I would say, Freddie, I would say the main thing is just get into action. There's a pre-approval can seem overwhelming and it can seem like an official process. It's really just an education. To understand exactly where you are with regards to programs, products, do you qualify, how much do you qualify for? So for somebody starting off, a lot of times most first-time homebuyers, they have no idea what questions to ask or what to do with the answers. So it's important that you align yourself with a team like you and I, Freddie, because as a loan officer, what I'm going to do is I'm going to walk them through exactly what the process is, next steps, closing costs, really everything they need to make a best decision possible when they're going to look at a property.
Excellent. That's good to know. So if I were a first-time home buyer and I am looking at my credit score,
sure,
what should that credit score look like?
Yeah. So in general, good credit is going to be a pretty important part of the process. It's going to determine your how much you qualify for. It's going to determine your interest rate. It's really going to be kind of the catalyst for the entire process. A lot of times what happens is that there's collections that come up or things that pop up on people's credit. And companies like Credit Karma and some of these other companies that are out there, they don't really dive deep into the credit. So it might be something that comes up, you have no idea it's there. You think you have good credit, but you find out only after talking with a lender and doing what's considered an actual credit pull. Sometimes it's called a hard credit pull. We're looking at the entire history of somebody's credit. So, and as a result, we're able to see things and really understand what's going on with their credit. And if they need to improve it, that's something that as a lender, I'm happy to walk people through.
And just from my knowledge, when you're doing a deep dive, how far back are you going on these credits?
Yeah, so any full credit report will go back 7 years.
7 years.
7 years
so
is
anything
pretty customary.
Prior to the 7 years will probably not be showing up.
It probably won't be showing up or really have very little to no impact.
And depending on that credit, what does that affect as part of the mortgage?
Sure. So technically, to get the best interest rate possible, Freddie, you want a credit score that's 740 or greater. And that's the very top tier. Then what happens is credit works in a series of 20-point tiers from 740 to 720. Interest rate might go up a little bit higher.
Gotcha.
As we go from 720 to 700 and so forth. So there's what's called an inverse relationship between credit and interest rates. Okay, so one of the nice things is that there might be something very easy somebody could do with their credit report, like pay down a credit card bill to what's called 30% usage. In other words, their balance to available is very high, the ratio. Their available credit's $10,000, they owe $10,000. Now all of a sudden that has a negative impact because their balance and available are very close.
Wow.
So if they come in and they're able to get a gift from a family member, just pay that down to maybe 50% usage. So now the available is $10,000, balance is $5,000. We may see a 20-point bump in a credit score.
Wow, these are amazing strategies that most consumers don't know that they can use to put their credit score in line to get the best possible interest rate.
That's exactly right.
That's perfect.
Exactly right.
So when you're saving for a down payment as a first-time home buyer, obviously, we're looking to see what the price of the mortgage or the home is going to be. But what is the perfect amount that they should be saving?
Yeah. So typically, you want to definitely a down payment is going to be important part of the process. As a first-time home buyer, you can put as little as 3% down on a property. So if somebody out there is looking for a $400,000 property, we know the down payment minimum is $12,000. There's closing costs and there's transactional fees that are part of that. And let's just use rough numbers at $10,000. The down payment itself can come from 3 different sources. It can come from a 401k, it can come from a gift from a family member, or it can come from just checking or savings.
Okay.
All right. And then as far as the closing costs, those can come from those sources also. However, we could also get a credit from the lender or from the seller. Get a credit from the seller. That would be something as an agent, Freddie, you would work into the transaction. Obviously, we're at the mercy of the seller to agree to it, right? So it doesn't always work, especially in a multiple offer situation. But certainly, it's important to know that that's available. As a lender, what I like to do is I really understand where people are at financially as far as assets for the down payment. And then on the front end, solve for that and let everybody know that, hey, we may need a seller's credit on this because they have some money left over they want to use for renovations on a property.
Understood. That's amazing.
Yeah.
So when they are determining like their budget, and they're looking at their own financial picture, their debt, they might have a car, they might have some other allowances that they put towards, I want to call them toys of some sort, because everyone has
jet skis,
motorcycles.
Yeah.
So when they're looking at their financial picture, how should they say, like, maybe some of these things should be sold or given away,
Sure.
or what's the best picture that the buyer can show a mortgage lender?
Yeah. So I think the first thing as a mortgage person, what I like to do is look at everything as if we're not going to make any changes. You know, do you qualify today based on your current debt load, based on the properties that you're looking to purchase, sales price wise, does that work? If the answer is yes, fantastic. Then I know if you do make any changes, it's only for the better. You still qualify for the property. But when I'm reviewing everything, if somebody has a budget of $500,000, but based on their debt load, they're really only at $350,000 or $400,000. Now all of a sudden, okay, well, where can we cut back to reduce the payments on a motorcycle or a boat, or do we need to pay off a credit card? You know, and then we kind of start pulling things back from there. We understand that that's going to take some time. Right. So it's important that we also create a timeline for our buyers and make sure that we set some parameters as far as, you know, what's your goal to purchase, and then work to either expand their goal a little further, or get pretty aggressive on paying things down so that they can meet their timeline.
Excellent. So from your perspective, as a first-time home buyer, how far in advance should they be looking before they're actually buying a home in order to prepare for this whole journey?
I had that conversation the other day with a client. So, you know, it sounds a little cliche, but it's really, there's not an early enough, you can never reach out to a good lender early enough. Because I have people that come to me that are planning on buying in 18 months, and they're like, Rob, where do I begin?
Right.
Perfect. And I would much rather have clients like that than a client that comes to me and says, we're under contract, we're closing in 30 days, I don't know anything about mortgages, where do we begin? So the more time that I have to set the transaction up for success, the better the outcome is going to be. So it's truly not, there's not an early enough time to, can't be too early reaching out. Exactly.
And currently in the market that we're in, what loan programs would you recommend to first-time home buyers?
Yeah. So there's traditionally two different types of loan programs. There's a fixed mortgage and what's called an ARM mortgage, which ARM is an acronym for adjustable rate mortgage. And so, you know, I would probably say 80% of my clients in any year are going to be looking for a 30-year fixed, a 20-year fixed, something where the payment doesn't change over time, the rate doesn't change over time, and at the end of that 20 or 30 years, that house is paid off. Very traditional sort of mortgage. In markets that kind of feel like the one we're in, where rates are sensitive and people are very sensitive to interest rates, ARM products are becoming more and more in the marketplace. And so basically what an ARM product, again, adjustable rate mortgage. So for example, it's a 10-year loan, and after it's a 30-year term, so the payments are based on 30 years, with the first 10 years locked in. And because you're taking on a little bit of the risk on where the market's at after that 10 years, the bank is rewarding you by giving you a lower interest rate because you're taking on some of that risk. So for example, if the going rate in today's market is, and I'm pulling a number out, is at 6%.
Okay.
An ARM product may typically be 0.5 or 0.75% less. So you're getting the monthly benefit on a $300,000 loan of, let's say, $80 a month, but you're taking on a little bit of the risk and where the market's going to go after that time.
So what happens at that 10-year mark? What are the options
Mm-hmm.
for that?
Yeah, so at the 10-year mark, the loan automatically goes into a 1-year adjustable for the remaining 20 years. So, however, when, let's say somebody has a $300,000 mortgage, they end up doing a 10-year arm because the rates are awesome. At the end of that 10 years, the loan adjusts to that next rate based on what their principal amount is at that time. So, for example, let's say they start off with a $300,000 mortgage. At the end of 10 years, that reset happens. Their mortgage may only be $200,000 or $150,000.
Right.
So a lot of times, what happens is people notice that their interest rate is going down. And then there's that 1-year adjustment for the next 20 years. It's based on a 1-year adjustable. It's based on a very low index. So a lot of times people will either stay where they're at on that adjustable. I will typically come in year 7 and year 8 and just say, hey, is your goal for the property still a couple years out, or do we need to put you on a 20-year to get you moving forward?
Gotcha. So they do have options at
Oh,
that
yeah.
10-year, at that point in their loan process to determine, do they stay, do they refinance or change
That's right.
the
yeah.
loan?
And I help them really kind of balance that fine line between risk versus reward. Every transaction's, every family is a different personality. They have different goals. They have different adversity towards risk. And it's really about providing options for my clients to make sure that there's the best outcome possible for them and their family.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
So if as a first-time home buyer, what is the difference between being pre-approved and just being pre-qualified?
Sure. Yeah, these are two approaches that are perfectly fine. Typically, a pre-qualification is that your credit is pulled, but you only verbally given the information regarding your income and assets to a lender. And in their pre-qualification letter, it'll say that based on what you told me about your income and assets, you appear to be qualified at this amount. A pre-qualification letter, which is much more robust, potentially maybe more so what a seller might want to see if they're accepting an offer, or have a variety of different offers that come in, where I've actually reviewed income, assets, credit, and that the loan is preliminarily approved based on title and appraisal. Much more robust. If I was, you can do either one. If I was a buyer going into a transaction and I wanted to make sure I was in the best negotiating position possible, I know which one I would go with.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Excellent. And to close up this chapter, what are 3 things that you would say to someone not to do before they close their loan?
Before they close their loan. So I would say, that's a great question.
Because I'm sure you've seen it all.
The time. Yeah, so I had a client last year that decided to take their family to Disneyland a week before closing and spent all their money for a down payment. We had that happen. That was fun. So I would say just be very conservative as far as spending. Definitely don't go out and buy anything on credit. So a lot of times folks will be looking at furniture and things like appliances. They'll go to Home Depot. They'll see that they're going to get $200 off their refrigerator, opening a charge. That's something that can not necessarily stop the transaction, but it can just add a layer of complexity that could potentially push the closing date out, because now we have to get documentation. We have to understand the different, the credit card. Was there money taken out? Now we have to incorporate that monthly payment into the debt to income ratio. It starts to get a little hairy. So what I always encourage clients not to acquire any new debt. Make sure that they continue to go to work on time so they don't lose their job, and watch the spending.
Right.
Just watch the spending. Just live a really conservative lifestyle during that time to ensure that everything is on track and you're not in breach of contract.
Very cool, very cool. This has been so knowledgeable
great.
information for buyers out there, and I just want to thank you. And if you want to tell my viewers, where can they find you?
Yeah, so I work with Wintrust Mortgage. Again, my name is Robert Curtis. My phone number is area code 773-732-9444. I'm sure it'll be listed here on our cast and on social media. But any questions at all, need to get pre-approved, feel free to reach out to Freddie and myself.
Excellent. Thank you for watching, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you for
Take care.
coming by. I
All right.
appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely.